you want me to
Come
go?
over.
I feel like I'm sitting in your lap. Oh, wait, it's 7 o'clock on Saturday night. And this is, Saturday Night Live with CarEdge from Ventnor City, New Jersey. And I'm sitting in my son's lap. At least that's what it feels like.
I do read the comments. People say, stop giving your dad such a hard time. So you know what, Dad?
Yeah.
You're welcome in my lap. Here's the deal. We're going to have a different type of show tonight. We are going to bring in a special guest. The channel is Car Questions Answered. We have Brandon on the channel from time to time. Even see Mrs. Car Questions Answered here in the chat with us. Yes. We are going to be talking about forecasting. What's going to happen here in the new and used car market? The title I went with tonight was Wait Until December and Save Thousands Buying a Car. Heated debate.
Okay.
Brandon, I'm going to pull you in right here. Brandon from Car Questions Answered. If you're not familiar with the channel, please go check it out. I'm just going to exit the stage this way. Who owes who a steak dinner? We'll dig into that and more.
I don't know about heated debate. Where do we get that title from?
That was all me. I'm sorry. That's all me.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Chicken Littles here. Brandon, how the hell are you? How's the used car business in North Carolina?
It's actually good. We've been selling more cars here lately, but we've been able to buy more cheaply at auctions. So that's it's probably a factor of that, and that we're the only people that sell cheap cars. So there you go. So business is good. Auctions are good. More repos. Fewer. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Less price. Fewer price.
Lower pricing.
Fewer dollars. There we go.
Less dollars. Fewer dollars.
How about the higher end cars, the 1, 2, 3-year-old lower mileage cars?
That stuff, if it's good, if it's good, it's still bringing crazy money.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've seen any type of sizable decline in what those vehicles are doing.
So what we're seeing is that maybe not necessarily that the prices are coming down on the sold units, but there are a lot more no sales. There are a lot more if bids that are going through the auction because sellers still want crazy money, right? Because they're still used to what they got a couple months ago. But there's fewer bidders that are in the system or fewer bidders that have an appetite to actually pay up. So that's why we see a lot of these no sales popping up, while we see a lot more of these if bids. Same thing we saw back in the fall when prices were starting their downtrend. Is going to be a similar story right now.
So let's talk about that, guys. We have at times on this channel and on the CarEdge channel, or excuse me, on the Ransack channel, we've discussed differing perspectives of what's going to happen here with regards to used car prices. So, Brandon, do you still think that used car prices are going to come down? And Pops, do you still think used car prices, are going to stay flat? What do you guys think about that?
Who's first?
You can go first. You're our guest. You can go first.
I think just what I've continuously said is that a slow trend down, no crash. It's not going to be a crash. There's not enough inventory for it. Slow trend down until we hit load up for tax season next year. And then we'll get a little bit of a pop again. The pop will be less this year than it was last year, just because there's more inventory in the system, and there will be more inventory in the system at that point. But then after that, it's back to downtrend because the Fed's doing its job. Interest rates control the whole market. Even when supply is as low as it is, people cannot afford $1,500 a month payments.
I just want to ask a question, because you're saying that we're not going to see a crash.
Yes.
And I'm just, and I know your stance on this is generally anti-crash.
My stance is that I don't think we're going to see any significant decline in retail asking prices. And when Brandon and I talk about used cars, typically we're actually talking about two different segments of the used car business. For his side of things, he's seeing a reduction in what he has to pay for these cheaper cars at the auction, and that translates into what he asks for his vehicles on his lot. What I normally talk about are the newer, the 1 to 5-year-old cars that still seem to be bringing all the money on the retail side of things. That there's very little decline in the asking prices of those. And both can be true.
We were looking at the Edmunds data, though, just the other day, which was retail asking prices. And retail asking prices are down A little bit.
A little bit, not a lot of bit. I mean, we've seen on the according to Black Book and what's the other one? Manheim, Cox. We've seen what they're saying. We've seen wholesale price drops of 11+%. Just in the last 4 weeks, according to Black Book, there's been about a 5% drop in wholesale prices. Conversely, we've seen really limited drops in retail pricing, and that's why I think both things can be true. Yes, if there's more repos, typically those bring less money at the sales. The lower mileage, younger cars, as somebody once said, you can never pay too much for a nice used car. And so if you have a used car manager looking for nice used cars, they have to pay. They have to pay all the money to get them, which means they're going to ask all the money. And somewhere along the line, there seems to be still enough buyers that are willing to pay for it. Go ahead.
So one thing that is going to feed into your argument too is I've talked to some GMs recently, GMs of GM, and what they're doing right now is because they're completely anticipating the strike and it's going to happen. What they're doing is they're buying up as many parts as they can right now. And what they're doing is they're buying the newer used vehicles. They're loading up on those because they're worried about the strike lasting a very long time. So to Ray's point, if the strike happens and if it's a long time, especially the nicer, newer vehicles, they're going to get popped like crazy because these franchise GM, Ford, and the Stellantis dealers, they're going to be terrified of not getting vehicles, and then they're going to start running up that stuff at auction.
And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you. If potentially we're 12 days away from a strike, and so I was going to ask you, what do you think the impact of a strike would be? Even if it's, I suspect that it'll be somewhere around 10 days to 2 weeks. Now, God knows that every prediction I've ever made has been wrong. So you can take my 10 days to 2 weeks and you can probably times it by 10, and we're probably closer to what might really happen. So if there is a prolonged strike, how do you think that will even impact the type of cars that you buy?
I don't think so, because I really don't think there's going to be an increase in demand for vehicles. I think what's going to happen is that, like these franchise GMs I've talked to, a lot of this is going to be psychology, right? They're going to be terrified that, you know what, they've all these franchise GM positions, they don't turn over a whole lot. So they were there during COVID, right? They were there when they couldn't get vehicles. So now they're going to be scared to death to have the same scenario where they're just not going to have vehicles available and they're going to have people wanting to buy them. So I do think if even when we get to the date and the strike is announced, right? I think it's going to happen. I think strike's going to happen, whether it's 2 days, whether it's 2 months, whether it's 2 years, whatever, the psychology of it is going to have a lot of these GMs terrified. And what's going to end up happening is all these, the GMs that aren't scared, they're going to be made scared by the other GMs because they're going to see these prices just get just ran up at auction, and it's going to be just kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a similar thing that happens with tax time every year with the cheaper stuff and with the mid-tier stuff, that dealers freak out, they sell all their stuff, they rush to the auction, they run up the prices, and that's the same thing that's going to happen with the newer end stuff. It's only going to take a few GMs in a few areas that are going to start saying, okay, whoever's their buyer, I don't care what it costs, we need cars. So go get them.
I got a question for you guys, and just for everyone, GM stands for not General Motors in some context, but in this case, General Managers.
Right, yeah.
People that operate, like, literally are responsible for the profit and loss of that dealership. So they're the ones who could be in that self-fulfilling prophecy that you were describing. Question for you then, because we do have the wholesale data, and you just mentioned it, and I'll pull it up on the screen so we can all look at it. You mentioned it, Pops, and we'll just look at it briefly here. We are down 5% in the month of August.
Yes.
In wholesale used car prices.
Yes.
Is there not an arbitrage play here? Like, do you think maybe that's what's going on? Is that some folks that really, really, really had to get rid of inventory are getting rid of it, but then other dealers are now going to try and bid it up? Like, I'm just trying to think through what could possibly happen here if there is this shortage and if there's such pressure to get your hands on used cars. This is kind of like what happened around tax season or even back during the COVID pandemic. I guess if anything, this will simply speak to just volatility, continued volatility in the used car market.
So the difference between now and tax time is this is going to be an artificial suppression of supply, right? Because there's not going to be any increase of demand of buying pressure from consumers. There's only going to be this artificial limitation of vehicles that are getting to the dealers is what's going to scare them. So what I think could possibly play out, these strikes happen, a lot of these newer vehicles are bought up, and then they realize, okay, well, you know what? Even though we're fighting to get these vehicles in, we're still not selling them. So then there might be a hold at that point where they're like, okay, we bought too many cars in anticipation of this. We still can't sell them. So then we just start our downtrend again. That's one scenario that I can see playing out because I don't see any increase in demand from the consumer.
Yeah, like, are people really interested in those $50,000 used cars?
Apparently, they keep selling.
It seems like yeah.
Here's a question for you. Could, like, the last 4 weeks where we've seen significant, at least according to Black Book, we have seen a significant reduction in the value of wholesale cars. Could it be similar to when COVID struck and stores closed down and a lot of stores got scared and just started dumping stuff, and the really smart dealers with tremendous foresight said, this is the time to be buying, not the time to be selling? Could we be seeing a repeat of that as the wholesale prices have gone down over the last month? Could it be the same dealers that took advantage of that decline at COVID be the ones taking advantage and buying those cars up now, anticipating that because of a strike that there'll be a spike in those wholesale values in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks?
I don't think so, because the increase of no sales is just crazy. So it's not, these cars aren't getting run up to the point where they're getting sold. So there might be some dealers that they think they're taking advantage of stuff, but like my belief is that the demand for these vehicles on the consumer side, and I said it earlier, has not been raised. So even if there are some dealers out there that think that they're getting won over because they're getting inventory right now, it's not going to help them sell any more vehicles. Where the problem might arise is if you create this artificial shortage for a very long time, and then it becomes not an artificial shortage at that time. So
real.
Yeah, it becomes real if the strike goes on for a month or more. And then at that point, then you got problems. And I really don't know what's going to happen. My assumption would be that the higher end stuff gets pumped at that point. I don't think we're there yet, because I think a lot of these dealers are having such a hard time selling vehicles. All the salespeople that I've talked to, I've recently been to a Nissan dealership, and I talked to salespeople. One guy's been there for 25 years. The other guy's been there for 18 years. You know how rare that is. So they are plugged in. They know exactly what's going on with everything. And they're selling all of their vehicles under MSRP. No add-ons, no extra fees, nothing like that. They said that they are dead.
Wow. And why do they think they're dead?
They just said nobody's got any money. Nobody can get into these payments that they're trying to get. Now, if they when they get Sentras in, the lower trim Sentras that they can sell for $23,000, they sell those just like that as soon as they get off the truck. Everything else is sitting. Now, you look at Nissan, and they have like the Titan. The Titan is the cheapest full-size nice truck that you can get, and they have trucks just sitting out there, and they can't even get people to look at them. And this is when Ford has $75,000 trucks, and this Titan is $52,000, and it's a nice truck, and it's just sitting there.
I want to come back though to a few comments around the strike, because I want to translate this back to the impact, not for the dealer, because you know what? At the end of the day, we don't serve dealers. We're here to serve the people that are watching this to better understand when they should time their buy.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, I think, pretty good alignment that we all agree. Let's test this out. We all think there's going to be a strike on September 14th.
Yes.
Raise your hand if you think there's okay. All right. We all agree there's going to be a strike. We all think that because of that strike, there could be a momentary increase in used car prices. But I'm gonna use my words here, momentary. I don't anticipate that that's going to be prolonged. Do you think it's going to be prolonged? You don't think it's going to be prolonged. You've said on the record you don't think it's going to be prolonged. What do you think, Brad? Do you think it's going to be prolonged?
Yep.
You do think it's going to be prolonged.
I think the OEMs want it.
So then if it is prolonged, what does that do to people who are contemplating buying a used car? Does it set, I said today for the stream, I said, wait until December and save thousands buying a car, but maybe that's extra true, because if you were going to do it in the next couple of weeks here while there's a shortage, I'm trying to get a sense from you, Brandon. What do you think? If there's actually a prolonged strike,
you say shortage, it's going to take a long strike to make a shortage. We have an excess right now of vehicles.
Yeah.
On the new side. On the more expensive American-made stuff, we have an excess of these vehicles. We see that in the day supply, right? You guys talk about it every day.
Yep.
So it's going to take I don't even know how long, because I don't know how much production that they just stop and how many vehicles they're selling right now. I think it's probably way less than what the numbers have been leading up to over the months. So I think it's going to take a long strike for the American OEMs to actually have a deficit of what they're getting out versus what they're selling.
But regardless of if there's a shortage or not, the psychology that you were talking about should theoretically drive back up prices for new and used, because when you go to buy that car, the salesperson is going to say to you, hey, look, salesperson at the Ford, Stellantis, or the GM dealership is going to say to you, look, like, we don't know when we're going to get any new cars, and that's why used car prices are so high. That's why we got to sell this truck to you at sticker or over sticker. I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, end of September probably isn't a good time to be in the market to buy a new or used car. Middle of October, if there's still a strike, is still not a good time to be in the market if you're looking to buy it. Go for it,
yeah.
I've read some of the comments to some of our videos of people that actually, either work for some of these manufacturers as that are members of the UAW, and in some of the plants, General Motors has already turned off overtime. There is no overtime to be had now, so they're not looking to run overtime. They're not looking to run weekend shifts. They've already started cutting back the number of cars and vehicles that they're producing. Now, are they cutting that back to punish their workers, to punish the UAW for what the UAW is asking for? Are they cutting it back because they think they have enough inventory built and sitting and waiting to be shipped to their dealers, that they just don't want to grow their inventory even more? And here's a question that just crossed my mind. If they have all these vehicles sitting around and the Teamsters go on strike, and like car carriers are members of unions, who's crossing those lines to go pick up those vehicles that have been built and that are sitting? How are those vehicles going to get to the dealerships if there is a strike, and if other unions strike in sympathy with or refuse to cross over any picket lines in order to move that inventory? I mean, this really could be a big ass can of worms. I can't even come up with the acronym. Yeah.
I think you're onto something, though. To be very clear, I think you're absolutely onto something. We've seen Unifor up in Canada already come out and say that if the strike happens in the United States, they're going to go on strike up in Canada. So I think you are likely going to see a cascade effect, and it'll have ripple effects as well. I'm still just not convinced that it's going to be prolonged at all. I saw a comment from Igor in the chat saying it's just not good for the U.S. economy, so it won't happen. And look at it. I mean, the federal government plays. If you don't agree with this statement, more power to you. But I think you're wrong. The U.S. government influences the auto industry excessively. I mean, how much did they plow in just the other day? Like $12 billion for EV production. on top of tax
yes,
incentives that the U.S.
yes.
government. So if you don't think the U.S. government plays a role,
A huge role.
a huge role,
Yeah.
they don't want to see this strike go on. They don't want that. The U.S.
So-
government doesn't.
So
It's
if
not
we
gonna
get
be
a strike for a month, you think the government, this administration steps in and like, okay, you know what, you guys are here, we're here, we'll give you this so we can get to here. Okay.
I'm not saying that the automakers are going to become, government-owned entities. They're obviously private companies. We're not going that route, but they influence it, man.
I think what happens is the government can come in and say that the production of automobiles is necessary for the good of the country, and so that they
we hold up dealer markup picket fines.
Yeah, but
Right.
but which they can then say, okay, the strike is now illegal. You all have to go back to the
work.
bargaining table and
Yeah.
figure out a solution, but you cannot be on strike while you're figuring out that solution. The government has done things like that in the past. There is great divergence of opinion as to whether the economy is in good shape or bad shape. You listen to some, and the economy's in great shape. Adding jobs, inflation allegedly is dropping. Wages are increasing minimally.
I went grocery shopping today, man. It was
it's ugly out there.
It is.
And then there's others that are saying, the economy's terrible. It's tanked. We're going to go into a recession, if not a depression.
Some might even say the bubble has burst.
Some, like you, could suggest that it's
crash is
Armageddon.
coming.
The bubble has
The crash
burst.
is also coming.
Yeah, crash is coming. Just look at Zach's titles.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the end of the world is near. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But if the economy is even somewhat sketchy, the government's going to step in. They don't want to have a recession. They don't want to have a repeat of the Great Recession.
And we're going to be coming up to an election year. They're totally not going to let that. Anyway,
okay, so I think if there's a strike, that's why I don't think it will last very long. I don't care how deep the UAW strike fund is, so that they can pay their members $500 a week. It doesn't matter how deep that fund is. What matters is the government's going to step in and say it's a threat to the country if you continue the strike, and we won't allow that.
And the thing about it is the OEMs might want a strike to be longer than the actual UAW does.
Very well could be.
Look at this comment in the chat from Jeff. I don't believe in coincidences. Perfect timing for a strike. That is what's fascinating about this. We talk about it all the time. You're right, Brandon, earlier mentioning market days supply. That is the North Star for these OEMs and for these dealers. They don't want to have too many cars sitting around, because no matter what, whether it's the manufacturer or the dealer, someone is paying to have a piece of metal sit somewhere.
Yes.
They don't want that. They would rather you pay for it. You pay for it. I pay for it.
They'd rather it be in somebody's driveway than on somebody's parking lot.
Because who's paying for it when it's in the driveway? The customer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Takes up space. You got to pay for that space. This is what's so fascinating about this. Is name them automakers that are not affected by this. Tesla's not affected by this. Toyota's not affected by this. Honda's not affected by this. Hyundai's not, all indirectly, sure. But it's fascinating that the automakers that have the highest days supply of inventory are the ones that, I'm not even going to use the word conveniently, but some might say conveniently the ones that could be impacted by this temporary slowdown in production. Go for it, good
Ray.
sir.
I've got a question for you. So let's say, okay, I know you don't believe it's going to be a long strike. Let's say it is a long strike, and it takes at least 2 months for them to figure this stuff out. What happens to all these OEMs that aren't affected by the strike? What do you think is going to happen to their pricing?
Well, if their inventories levels start to creep up, and one of the numbers that we didn't review yesterday for sales for August was Honda was up like 50% again last month. So even though some of these brands like Toyota, Honda don't have a lot of cars, or they appear not to have a lot of cars, they're selling everything they have, and obviously they're building more cars than they had before. So I think that Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, they're already showing that they can step in and produce at higher levels than they had been and satisfy consumer needs and demands. The ones that it really impacts are GM, Ford, and Stellantis.
But what do you think happens to their pricing? Does it go up because there's
I
no
know,
alternative GM product?
No,
to go
because
purchase?
they'll still listen. There's enough inventory sitting around. It's not what it had been. I mean, but today inventory levels are probably somewhere on the new car side, somewhere around 2.2 million. Okay, that's a far cry from 3.5 million that it used to be, but it's double what it had been. And I think there's enough domestic new car inventory that they could literally sustain a 2-month strike. It'll bring their inventory levels back to
Wait a second. Sorry, guys. Market day supply is how many days worth of inventory you have based on today's selling rate.
Yeah,
and how many vehicles are in inventory. And you've said in the past, so that means if they didn't receive another car, this is how long they could sustain themselves based off.
In some cases, they could sustain themselves for a year on some models.
Humor me, Brandon and Pops, for one moment. I'm going to the damn website because let's just do a quick example. You guys know this is what I live for. I live for doing these examples.
You live for examples.
Let's do a zip code. Let's go to Arizona.
Okay.
85254.
Oh, that's a good deal on a few.
He's got good eyes, folks. He sees a good car when he can.
Yeah.
New car.
Let's
start with Ford.
Okay.
And let's look at an F-150.
Okay.
In Scottsdale, Arizona, on a Platinum, on Ford F-150 Platinums in Scottsdale, Arizona, we think you should be able to get $6,000 off of MSRP. If they don't receive another in Scottsdale, Arizona, within 100 miles of Scottsdale, Arizona, if they don't receive another F-150 Platinum new, they have 275 days worth. And the way we're able to calculate that is because there are currently 122 for sale within 100 miles of this dealer, but only 20 have sold in the last 45 days. That means, to your point, Pops, they have so much inventory sitting around. They have 275 days worth of inventory. They do not need to get another vehicle delivered, and they have enough inventory for the next 270. Wow.
Well, even if things took off, and it was only 170 days, whatever it is, that's why I think there's enough inventory out there and enough buyers still, especially if there's a strike and people suddenly get afraid that, oh my God, we won't be able to get a car. Let's go buy a car.
Because those headlines are going to pop up. You're going to be on Yahoo Finance, and it's going to be like Carmageddon.
Yeah.
Trademark on that.
But what happens when that person that's scared of not being able to get F-150 and they walk on the lot and there's 150 of them sitting there?
That's a good point.
Well, they
read the Yahoo whatever,
and they go,
and then they show up,
and the dealer goes, "Good news, you have your pick."
Take your number, but you're 134. You're lucky because there's only 16 more people in front of you.
Yeah, but the dealer might, will say, 10 days from now or 2 weeks from now, we might only have 60 left.
Right.
I mean, that's, dealers know how to create urgency.
No, for sure. I'm just blown away because it just clicked for me that we always talk about what market day supply means. It implies that if not a single car was delivered, that's what you're looking at. And what we're talking about is because of a strike, potentially not a single car will be delivered. So what on hand, on the ground, in stock inventory do they have? Now, 275 days worth.
Now, the problem could be for some of these manufacturers if they can't get the stuff that's already built, that's sitting on lots waiting to be transported. If they can't get those vehicles to the dealers, then that becomes an issue. And then that creates urgency on the manufacturer's part to get the strike settled as quickly as possible. I in my heart of hearts, I just don't believe that the manufacturers want to have anything that lasts really long. I don't really believe the UAW wants to have a strike last long. I mean, anytime there's a threat of a strike, both sides always talk tough at the beginning of the strike.
For sure.
And then there's, common sense and common ground comes into play. It's not beneficial for either side to have a long strike. If the UAW workers are getting $500 a week in strike benefits, but their normal pay is $1,500 a week, and inflation is what inflation is, and the cost of everything has gone up, and the cost of insurance goes up, and the cost of $500 doesn't mean a lot.
Can I show one thing here that I think can frame the conversation on a very important topic?
Okay.
Very, very important.
Okay.
We've got from my guy Kirby. He says market days is deceptive. Too many overpriced units that cannot even be purchased by most buyers. I think Kirby's really on to something here, and I want to show you both this. I pulled up while you were going off there, Pops. I pulled up an entry level F-150.
Okay.
So we're going to translate this to the potential affordability crisis and how that could actually be negatively impacted.
Yeah, there you have it.
This is the cheap Ford F-150, and there's a 57-day supply. So when there's a UAW strike and no more F-150 XL rear-wheel drives are being dropped off, this is what gets impacted.
Yes.
So the scarcity mindset, to your point, Brandon, doesn't really work when there's 150 of them sitting around. But it does work if there's one or two. And I'm now getting nervous just having this conversation, thinking that the cheaper options that are actually out there could be the ones that are most materially impacted by this.
Yeah, because that shortage would be exacerbated.
They're not out there right now anyway, though. They're the ones that are most impacted anyway. So it doesn't matter if there's a strike or not. There's nothing out there that's base level anymore. They don't want to sell those. They didn't produce a lot of them. And when they do send them out, then dealers are actually able to put add-ons on top of those because there's like 2 of them on the lot, and you got 35 platinums sitting on the lot.
and truth be told, when we went to our local Dodge dealer, we found 2 or 3 cheap ones, inexpensive ones, and when we checked the day supply for those vehicles, they were sky high. Nobody wants to buy them. So
they are cheap looking.
It doesn't matter if you have
I know, but I'm saying like it's a Ram and it's like a
but if you have a business and you don't want to spend $75,000 for a work truck, and even $45,000 for a work truck sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, that was the comment that just came in here. Where was it? From Cliff saying $44,000 is considered cheap. Whoops, there it is. When the average selling price of an F Series is almost 70 grand. Yeah, it is cheap. It is cheap.
So, but what we discovered when we checked was that, we think people should be running in to buy those things, and as it turns out, they don't, and they're not. And we keep calling for manufacturers to produce more entry-level vehicles, and one of the reasons they don't is because nobody's scurrying in to buy them. So I don't, what's the real market? I don't know. I just know that a long strike isn't good for anybody. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for the UAW workers. It's not good for the manufacturers. It won't be good for dealerships. So I know, Brandon, you think it's going to last a long time. I just don't. But I could be wrong. I always am.
And I'm just using the information that I'm getting from like the GMs that I've talked to, just because it really feels like the OEMs, like they need production cuts, and they don't want to go out and tell their shareholders that, we need to cut production because demand is down. They don't want to say that. So this is an easy scapegoat for them. And if they can have a strike for a month, if they can have a strike for a month and a half, then it gives them this production cut that they need to announce and that they need to do anyway. And they're going to have a little bit more leverage with the negotiations too, because they're not going to have to pay as much because they don't have to rush. They don't have to rush this at all. They can let them sit on the sidelines and then let this inventory just sit there, and let's sell some, and we can still keep our margins up, and we don't have to add extra incentives because we have the boogeyman of this not being able to get trucks out right now to help us keep our margins up.
Let's switch gears, guys, if it's okay with you. I want to go to the chat here for a moment. And then, Brandon, we talked about something last Saturday night that I really am excited to get your take on. So give me about 5-ish minutes and we'll get you over there. Before we do, I want to come here to the chat. We had some thoughtful contributions come in from our con. Thank you. We appreciate it. I assume we can get a Subaru right now, though. Subaru is, we did a video today on the channel. There were 3 brands that we said represent a fair value in today's market. Obviously, you have to go to a dealer that you can trust. Subaru, Nissan, Mazda. Those are 3 options. You mentioned it earlier, Brandon. You're talking to the guys at Nissan. No markup, selling under MSRP. And we're saying value, represent a fair value. Those are the ones. So, yes, you can definitely get a Subaru now.
Yeah, the Subaru, like Crosstracks, they're like, like $23,000, $24,000 you can get.
Crosstracks? I think entry-level Crosstrack is probably closer to 27, 28. Okay. The Legacies get down there. The Legacies are like 20.
Maybe that's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Crosstracks are some of – everything's regionalized. Everything absolutely is regionalized. When we did the sales event up in Staten Island, they had no Crosstracks. So they were selling them for the sales event at MSRP. But Legacies or Solteras, which no one's really looking for a Soltera, steep discounts. There are other regions of the country that have Crosstracks, and Crosstracks are – anyway, I'm not going to get on my soapbox. I'm just a Crosstrack fan. Here we go. Just a cinnamon bun.
Yes.
Thank you for the contribution. I think we may have some people in the chat that have recently lost a car due to being wrecked in an accident. What advice would you have for someone in this situation and timing? And we absolutely do, Deb. There are Randy Schwartz, one of our community members, came and actually met with us when we were in Staten Island, which was awesome. Randy was recently in a car accident and is in this situation. So what advice do you have for someone, Pops? And Brandon, if you have anything that you'd like to share, if you recently got in a car accident, what are you thinking about timing in the situation?
Well, you know, I have been of the opinion for the last several months, I want to say since February, if I remember correctly, when I did my solo video, that I don't really foresee prices going down to any great degree. So that if you find something you like today, in my mind, the chances are it's going to be cheaper today than it will be tomorrow or 2 weeks from now. And you know, maybe 2 weeks from now, it's $100 less. It's not going to be significantly less. So even though it might not be a really good time to buy a car, if you find the right car and it fits your budget and it checks out, and if you're looking at a used car and you get a PPI and it checks out, just go for it at this point. I mean,
pre-purchase inspection is what PPI. But do you have specific, or Brandon, go for it. What's your advice?
Don't buy from a dealer. Don't buy from a franchise dealer. Don't buy from me as a used car dealer. Don't buy one from a dealer. Try to find something from an individual if you can. Then you can actually buy a car for what it might be worth. But like what Ray was saying, I don't care if you're buying a car from your mama. I don't care if you're buying a car from me. I don't care if you're buying a car from someone you've known your whole life. If it's a used car, get it checked out before you buy it. You can buy a paperweight. You can buy a turd really quickly. Find a mechanic before you even start looking for a car. One that you can trust, that you can pay them a little bit of money, have them put it up on a lift, have them drive it like they were going to buy it themselves. That's what you need to do if you're in a situation where you have to buy a car now. And if you just wrecked your car, you have to buy a car now. So try to find an individual that you can buy a car from that has had it for a long time, knows the maintenance on it, and then get it checked out before you buy it.
Love it. And I want to mention we've got a guide back at CarEdge.com on pre-purchase inspection, so please take a peek at that. I want to comment one other thing here. Insurance payouts. I think a lot of folks are ultimately going to be pretty shocked if they're in this situation, because the hysteria was around how your car in your driveway was appreciating in value. And I've unfortunately already seen this happen in my Instagram DMs, over on TikTok, and via email. People are being the insurance companies, are being pretty prudent with regards to how they're valuing vehicles, because the wholesale values are dropping. So don't be upset when you inevitably see some sticker shock, like, oh, I thought my car was worth $25,000. And you're getting paid out for 20. And I think there are some things that consumers can do to try and advocate for a different payout from insurance companies. They can kind of go back and say, no, this is actually what the value of my vehicle is. I think you're able to do that. Am I correct? Do you know? You don't know?
This again?
All right. So Pops is leaving me on an island here. I always appreciate it.
Well, I didn't mean to leave you on an island, but
I think you can actually advocate or fight for what you think the value is of your totaled vehicle.
Well, you always can. I mean, the insurance company is no different than anybody else. They're going to lowball you at first.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have to work them utilizing some of the tools that can be found on the CarEdge website.
It doesn't have to be ours. It's just like, yeah, go for it, Brendan.
So we actually get calls all the time to our dealership saying, okay, just wrecked my car and we have to find a value of what our car is worth. And we just want to know if you as a used car dealership can tell us what this car would be worth with this amount of miles in this condition. So what's happening is in that situation is that someone got offered some money from their insurance company and they're like, no, this is not even close. And the insurance company comes back to them and says, you know what, we'll get us 3 different quotes from 3 different dealers and then maybe we can make something work. So that's what happens in that situation.
That's what I was trying to communicate. Yeah, exactly. And we've got someone here who, so thank you to this community member. When it inevitably jumps up on the screen here, man, my computer is really.
Yeah, when are you getting a new one?
I don't know, man. No, Dad, I did touch them.
While you're waiting on that, I keep seeing my wife answering people's questions about what I'm drinking. I'm drinking Woodford Reserve. It's bourbon, so my wife doesn't have to answer any of your questions anymore. There you go, baby.
Yeah, but the only people that watch this section will know. And then 3 minutes from now, somebody that jumps in and sees you drinking, they won't know.
I'll put a banner.
Nobody's going to watch this after we're done with it. What are you talking about?
I'll put a banner on the screen. From SMK4565, I'm an estimator for an insurance company whose third-party valuations, which in my state is 50-50 NATA book and 50% market value. Again, just back to the person who unfortunately was in an accident and their vehicle was totaled. These are good things to keep in mind. We should write a guide on that, to be honest, so we don't keep thinking. So we have some place that we can send people to. From Somval, thank you for the contribution. Keep leasing to keep your costs down. Plus, today's cars, because of all their tech, are not built to last too long. Brandon says no. Pops probably says yes.
Well, it depends what you're leasing. Right now, it's funny because I sent you a copy of an article today about how you can lease Kias and things like that, they're electric vehicles, and get the $7,500 tax credit pass through because it's a commercial sale, a commercial lease. And most people don't qualify for the $7,500 credit or all of it anyway, but this way you can get it. And leasing, which was sitting at about 16, 17, 18% of all cars sold, when it comes to electric vehicles, has jumped up to like 50, 60, 70% in some cases.
Because you get the tax?
Because you get the federal tax. And you know, think about it. I tell you all the time that every $1,000 is worth about $30 a month in your payment. So a $7,500 tax incentive that gets passed through to lower the price of the vehicle, that's what, $225. How it impacts your payment. It lowers the payment from what it would have been by $225. That's significant right now. That makes it affordable in many cases. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like leasing. Brandon is one of them. I am someone who likes leasing. So if you like it, great, do it. If you don't like it for whatever reason, great, don't do it.
What do you think, Brandon?
Leasing a vehicle has only been a wise financial decision ever in 2 years of existence of a lease. And that's been the last 2 years, right? When car values have gone up. Now, Ray's probably going to disagree with me on this, but I will say that if you want to buy a car and you want to throw away money and you don't want to have to worry about it, then at that point, it's fine if you want to lease a vehicle. Just know that you're going to be losing money. You're going to be forfeiting the depreciation of a lot of this. You're going to be paying for the depreciation of the vehicle, and then you're going to own nothing at the end of it, right? So this is my argument against it, and I know that you can live a carefree life with your lease, but it is not a financially wise decision to lease a vehicle.
I will say one other comment on leasing, which is it is really confusing. Period. I was just going to say for most people, but even for the salespeople, it's confusing. There are 3 variables that can impact lease payments, and the games, especially if you also have a trade-in that can be paid. It's like it's like a choose your own adventure story. The number of times you have opportunities to just totally trip over your own feet when you're leasing a vehicle are all over the place. It's like you're choosing your own adventure. Next thing you know, you're in the pit of snakes. Okay, I'm just saying leasing. No, because I've seen it happen so many times, Pops. You know, the salesperson or the sales manager closes you on a payment number. Next thing you know, you have an extended warranty on a lease, which makes no sense. You have your trade-in equity going to it. Makes no sense. It's like leasing creates a lot of opportunities to get in a bad financial situation without necessarily realizing it while having a monthly payment that you feel great about. It can be dangerous. Whereas out the door price, when you negotiate that, pretty straightforward. You negotiate an out the door price, you know what you're buying. You know, and then there's all sorts of other alligators in the pond with financing, but typically more straightforward.
All I will say about leasing is if it's a lease that allows you to buy out the lease at the end,
Which
for
is
for the residual value, then you have options. Or as I used to train salespeople to say, you know, if you buy the car and you finance it for 72 or 84 months, or you lease it for 36 months, in 36 months, would you rather have options? Like you can turn it in, you can trade it in, you can buy it and sell it for a profit, or would you rather have the obligations of having another 36 months of payments that are due? For people who like to always be in new cars that are under warranty, and there are people out there like that, leasing makes sense because typically you can get more car for a lower payment for a shorter period of time, and you're typically covered by a warranty. Now, if you no longer have the ability to buy it for the residual value at the end, well, that takes away one of the benefits. Then it just becomes absolutely positively a long-term rental, and I wouldn't recommend it. But if you still have the ability to buy it for the residual value, and I could foresee, Brandon, for the next several years where we could continue where at the end of a lease, vehicles are going to be worth more than what the residual values are if we continue to have pre-owned car shortages.
The argument to that is you're talking about options. Like a lot of these leases, you have mile amounts, so you don't really have options if you want to drive a lot. Another thing about it is if you're buying the car, even if you have payments on the car and you can sell it at any time. You don't have to wait till the lease is out, right? So
you don't have to wait for the lease to be out either. It's got to pay off just like a car loan.
Yeah, but still you got the mileage problems.
When you sign up for a lease, you sign up for the amount of miles you anticipate that you would normally expect to drive in a year. If you know you drive 20,000 miles a year, don't sign up for a 10,000 mile a year lease. Okay. I mean, I one time, just one quick story. I one time had a customer show up and they had a Ford Taurus that they wanted to trade in. It was a lease. Okay. It was a 12,000 mile a year, 3-year lease. He was allowed 36,000 miles. He had 123,000 miles on the car. Okay. And it was like, well, how do I trade out of this? You don't. Okay. There's, at 15 cents a mile, start doing the math. Okay. You're paying for all those extra miles. You don't sign up for a lease if you're driving 40,000 miles a year.
Oh, that's bad.
It was sad.
That's really, really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, we could run through some numbers like right now, like on a $40-something thousand car. What's your lease payment going to be? And it's typically what a 3-year lease is what's typical. Is that right?
Typically, yes, it's a 3-year lease. Yeah.
Again, the devil's in the details with this conversation. Leasing is very complicated relative to just purchasing something. When you purchase something, you have a price and you're paying for it. It gets more convoluted when you start to add in financing or if you have a trade-in. But leasing, you have a residual value, a money factor, and the actual capitalized cost of the selling price of the vehicle. It gets much more complex and convoluted. That's why if anyone is going to entertain that path, you have to understand what you're doing.
And leases are best for businesses.
Yeah.
For if you have a business and you can write off the lease, then leasing makes sense. You know, a lot of people, especially luxury cars, you know, most of those, the vast majority of those are leased, not purchased. I mean, why would anybody spend $180,000 for a 7 Series BMW, knowing that in 2 years it's worth 100? You're going to lease that, or at least you should.
So I will say, Ray, I love you, and this is something that we will never agree on. And that's
I'm not saying we should agree or disagree. It works for people it works for. It doesn't work for people who it doesn't work for. You know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you don't like it, don't do it.
All right, we're moving on, gentlemen.
I'm not moving on, damn it.
raising your voice suggests that you're upset.
No, I'm not upset.
You're not upset?
No, not at all.
Do we need to take Brandon off for a second?
No, stop it.
No, we're going to talk about everything in the open here because we're a family, and this is how we do it. We're going to talk. How many people are in this live right now?
1,580.
Okay, we're going to do it in front of God and all of 1,580 people. If we have an issue, we're going to deal with it right now.
Yeah.
We don't have any issues, gentlemen, because Shannon's here.
Yes.
Thank you for the contribution. And Shannon is giving me my flowers. So I like this. Always a great show when we also get Brandon's view. Yes, Brandon, we are very appreciative on a Saturday night that you've chosen to spend it with us. So thank you. We really, really, really do appreciate it. Brandon's channel, again, is Car Questions Answered. So please type it up in the search bar on YouTube. I agree with Zach that leases are confusing.
They are confusing.
Yeah, they really are.
You know, they absolutely, especially, I can tell you that salespeople that present leases, if you ask them a technical question, they couldn't give you, because they don't understand the lease. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand the components of a lease. Okay, that's just, it's more confusing than an outright purchase, but you can be bamboozled on whether you purchase a vehicle or you lease a vehicle. Dealers are good at doing whatever they think they need to do to maximize their gross profit. Yes.
Brandon, I want to show you something. Can I show you something?
No.
Well, there you have it. That's in front of God.
All right, that's the show, everybody. Good night.
All right, and we'll be back next Saturday.
Hey, I do have a question. I want you to pull up on your fancy little CarEdge machine. I want to see. I'm diverting the show completely. I'm sorry, Zach. I want to see Mach E's day supply.
Oh goodness gracious! What zip code?
Any. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
All right. Well,
that's not California. Let's do it other than California.
All right. We will. Let me just do a quick refresh because I opened up a new page here. All right, so let's go to.
What's your zip code in your area?
Oh, I don't want to out Brandon. Okay.
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
You're right.
08406.
That's our area.
Yeah, we'll do our area.
Yeah.
So we'll do Ford, and how about we just do engine and drivetrain, and we choose electric. So now we're looking at only electric Fords, and now new ones. Here's a premium. Here's a GT. Here's a premium. Let's look at this GT. 2 days. So they just got this one over at Chapman. So let's do a quick look. See, 192 days supply here in our neck of the woods. Let's try one other area really quickly.
I thought it would have been a lot higher than that. That's still high, but I thought it would have been a lot higher than that.
Let's check Arizona.
Who's buying these Mach-E's? I don't.
Not me.
Oh my goodness.
You know, Volkswagen ID4s are the ones that we see just sitting everywhere. But let's take a peek. Now we're in Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. There it is.
266.
There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Yeah. I was just curious.
You're not derailing me, man. I always, you know me, I love looking at the data. We've got some some zip codes coming in the chat here. You can obviously, everyone can run these back at caredge.com. Brandon, I want to get your take on
do
this.
90210.
Is that California?
I think that's Beverly Hills, isn't it? Isn't it? Wasn't that the name of the TV show?
How often do you cuss me and Ray in your head when we're going through these shows?
Never, man. I love you guys. You guys are great.
You know, when he told me you were going to be on tonight, I said that you were his brother from a different mother. And he said not to go there.
111 days in Southern California. So it is down. Look at that. 245 have sold in the last 45.
Well, you know, they're very popular in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, Beverly Hills. There you go.
You know.
All right, here's what I want to get Brandon's take on. We talked about this. It's going to be tiny at first, Brandon, but the closer it gets, the bigger it'll become. So let me just zoom in.
Oh my God. It's going to start out small.
Dad.
But I guarantee at the end, it won't
Stop. I'm zooming in.
Yeah. The more you zoom in, the bigger it looks.
Like that.
All right. Good night, everybody. We had a good show.
Oh, man.
All right, let me pull it up. All right, here it is. We covered this last week. This is a window sticker from a Toyota dealership. All right. What was this for? This was for a RAV4 Prime.
Yes. And you'll notice that it started out life at a different dealership than it's at now.
Oh, okay. I saw this video. I watched this video. This is good.
It was a dealer trade.
Yeah, Brandon, what do you make of this? So just for everyone that hasn't seen this, essentially, this vehicle has a $47,307 distributor's suggested retail price, which is with all its Toyota suggested retail price and the distributor added options, all that stuff. But then the dealer has put a market adjustment sticker on it that says that it's actually $10,000 more. And then the additional add-ons, it's a $72,000 RAV4 Prime. What do you make of this, Brandon?
Where did the $10,000 come from? They haven't subtotaled
They just made it up. In my opinion, they lied.
Yeah, in my opinion, they lied. Yeah.
Is there a chance they put the wrong MSRP on the bottom left-hand side?
No. That's because that's on the Monroney label.
Yeah, like this is this is against the law, right?
Right? Like that's what we kept saying last week, but this is what's actually happening out there. Isn't this wild? And they cover, and Adam's got it right here. Did they cover up the original sticker with an addendum label?
Well, they covered up part of the original sticker with an addendum label.
I'm just blown away by this. I'm glad that you saw our video on it, Brandon, because we were just in disbelief. But I wanted your take on it because I personally couldn't believe it. We even have my girlfriend here asking, what's MSRP? I'm only familiar with SRP. No. Damn it, Laura. We talk about this all the time. That's another thing that
maybe you should talk about different things.
That's another thing that we're seeing with Toyota brands. They're getting rid of MSRP and they're just calling it SRP and TSRP. Have you seen any of this stuff?
I haven't seen any of that local to me. I will say that the Toyota dealers near me, they have had no inventory, and now they've got. I won't say they're full. I think I was on the show with you last week, and I said it was a full lot. It's not a full lot, but it looked like a full lot compared to what they had just 2 months ago. So they had probably 15 4Runners out there. They had 20 Tacomas. They had 10 Tundras. They had a couple Camrys, and that's loaded for a Toyota dealer right now, right? So I'm not seeing any of the SRP crap where I am, because we're actually starting to get some inventory at Toyota around where I am. Honda still having a hard time, but Toyota, we're seeing inventory around me. And the Toyota dealership that I went to that I saw all that, they had an add-on, but it was only $500. I say only $500, it's still stupid for $500, but it was $500 and they still have inventory. So
yeah, but it's better than 25,000
because that's what we're looking at that RAV4 Prime. Yeah. That RAV4 Prime, truly, the fact that they're covering up the Monroney label, the fact that they are, covering part of it, the fact that they are modifying the MSRP, that all just blew me away. Really blew me away.
Yes. No, it's nonsense like that leads people to never trust a car dealer, even when we're trying to align ourselves with trusted dealers.
Yeah, the good ones.
And it's unfortunate. It's just sad.
Can I show you one other thing, Brandon?
No. Say yes, Brandon.
Please, man. It's the last thing.
I'm always going to say no when you ask me. Just show me.
For this one. So it's going to be a video. I'm going to put it up on the screen in a second, but I'm going to have to mute you for it because the way the audio works and everything. So I'm going to mute you really quickly. Okay. Cool. Appreciate it. And then I'm going to do this and then Pops and Brandon.
I watched this earlier.
Brandon, I'm so excited to show this. This is what you strive to do on your channel, what we strive to do on our channel, to help people like David. David gave us his permission to share this video. I am going to press play briefly to make sure everyone can hear it. Please, if you don't mind, Brandon, give me a thumbs up in just a second if you can.
Yeah, I wanted to do a shout out video to Ray and Zach and the CarEdge team for helping me with my recent car purchase. Just 2 weeks ago, I purchased a Mazda CX-30 with the preferred trim, brand new car, and it's really nice. And the MSRP was $30,680 on the window sticker. Of course, they had their addendum of window tint, nitrogen tires, door edge guards, handle guards, and something else for $1,495, and a $595 dock fee plus title and registration. That would have brought the total up to $35,698. We have an 8.3% sales tax here, and I'm rounding it off. I was able to take that car home for $32,880, which means, in practical terms, I paid a slightly less amount below MSRP for the car. I didn't pay a dime for their dealer add-ons. I didn't pay a dime for their dock fee, and I didn't pay a dime for title and registration, which I think that makes me a car buying rock star. What do you think? So the additionally, besides that, I borrowed $5,000 to purchase the car, and I walked in with my credit union approval at 6.2% or whatever it was, and they were able to do better for me through Mazda at 2.9% for 36 months, which is just like free money with the inflation rate of what it is today. And then lastly, I did look at your guys' extended warranty, and it looks good. It's cheaper than any of the other businesses that sell car warranties as far as I could find. I searched looked at three others, but I ended up buying the Mazda Platinum plan because it was zero deductible, and it was only $2,100. And so the reasoning behind that is I have a pretty good thought about Mazda being in business 10 years from now. I have no idea if any of these other companies will be in business 10 years from now. So the price was right. The features were right. It covered what I needed. And I thought it was a great deal. Appreciate your guys' show. Would love.
So, Brandon, I'm going to bring you in. Just give me 1 second here. And let me do 1 second. Thank you. Shout out to David.
Yes.
Shout out to David. Shout out to David.
Come on, give him a shout out.
Oh,
Brad.
I'm sorry. David. Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I don't understand what you're. Hey, I've been drinking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that Woodford Reserve is working.
It's working.
Yeah.
David sent that in. I'm incredibly proud of him. And it's awesome to see the impact that we get to do through these YouTube videos that we make. I mean, that's honestly what it's all about. We get to help people identify the right places to go, how to save some money, and to get a video like that came into our email inbox. So I just wanted to share it with everyone.
Yes.
So
he deserves the Ray Shefska stamp of approval. But I don't know how to do that.
I don't know how to do that either.
Okay. Well, so I actually got some kudos for you guys. I had a lunch with one of our viewers, Gil. You've seen him in the chat a bunch. He bought a Jeep Gladiator. I think the MSRP on it was like $44,000. He got the Jeep dealer to knock off some money from that, and then he got like a $4,000 rebate from Jeep. And he ended up paying like $38,000 for that brand new Jeep Gladiator. And he said it was thanks to watching you guys and watching my channel. And he was able to do the research and be able to find this deal on his own. So, that's another good story. Shout out to Gil.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yes,
Brandon.
thank you. That's why we do all this nonsense.
Well, and it's also fun. We've gotten to meet some really great people like yourself. Again, Brandon's channel is Car Questions Answered. Brandon, go enjoy your Saturday night with your family. Thank you for spending some of it with your internet family, us here, and those that have joined us. Pops, enjoy the other half of your sandwich that I brought you.
Yes, shout out to Fish and Whistle and my buddy Nick over there. Pulled pork, Italian long hots, sharp provolone, and fresh au jus on a nice Italian roll. I mean, I was swimming in it, and I wasn't even hungry. And there's another. I mean, I need a share. It was so damn good. So shout out to Fish and Whistle and my dear friend Nick. My God, I'm going to have to stop by again tomorrow. There you have it.
Brandon, have a great night. Thank you to you.
Thank
and your
you,
family.
Brandon.
See ya. See you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.